In the world of modern dating, everything seems to revolve around performance. What to text, how long to wait before replying, what outfit to wear to dinner, when to lean in, how to flirt without seeming too eager. The endless cycle of tips and tactics creates an atmosphere of pressure where intimacy becomes a calculated move instead of a lived experience. Yet beneath all the strategies, beneath all the noise, lies something quieter, more profound, and far more impactful: the silent language of presence. Among these moments of presence, few are as underestimated and yet as powerful as the simple hug. To most, a hug is a polite formality, a greeting, or a goodbye. It's a checkpoint before the real connection begins. But what if the hug itself is the connection? What if the way you respond to that brief moment of closeness could linger in a man's mind far longer than anything you say or do afterward? Carl Jung once said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." A hug is one of those rare contacts. It is raw, it is immediate, it is body to body, energy to energy, without the buffer of clever words or rehearsed actions. And because it bypasses the intellect, it often strikes deeper than anything else. Why the hug matters more than you think. Think about how most people hug. Quick, functional, almost mechanical. A few pats on the back, maybe a polite squeeze, and then release. That's the way society has conditioned us, to keep it moving, to avoid lingering too long, to treat closeness as something transactional. But because it's common, it's also forgettable. Now imagine the opposite. Imagine a woman who doesn't treat the hug as an afterthought, but as the moment itself. Instead of rushing out of it, she stays. Instead of tensing, she softens. Instead of checking her phone in her mind or worrying about what's next, she melts into the embrace. That subtle shift changes everything. It's not about seduction. It's not about trying to be sexy. It's about presence. Feminine warmth that whispers, "I am here. I feel you. I'm not afraid of closeness." And here's the truth. Most men rarely experience this. They live in performance mode. Leading, striving, fixing, protecting. Very few moments in their lives allow them to drop the armor and simply exist. But when they hold a woman who is not performing, who simply is, they feel it in their nervous system. They don't just remember it, they crave it. Jung wrote, "Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes." Presence in a hug is exactly this kind of awakening. It invites both people to step out of the endless, outside noise and into the truth of what's happening right here, right now. Two people sharing a moment of stillness, of belonging. The energy exchange. When a man wraps his arms around you, he is not just touching your body. He is brushing against your energy field, your warmth, your softness, your calm, your confidence. Most women underestimate how deeply men pick up on this, because men are rarely given permission to speak of such things. But make no mistake, they feel it. Think of energy like gravity. Some people pull you in, others push you away, and most drift by unnoticed. But the woman who knows how to respond to a hug with depth creates a gravitational pull that is irresistible. She doesn't need to raise her voice, dress provocatively, or perform for attention. Her energy does the speaking. Jung observed, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And in the micro moment of a hug, who you truly are is revealed. You cannot fake presence. You cannot fake relaxation. You cannot fake trust. The man may not consciously analyze it, but he will register it, and he will not forget how it made him feel." The 5 pathways hidden in a hug. This series is about unveiling 5 ways to transform a hug into an unforgettable emotional imprint, one that echoes in his mind long after the moment ends. We will explore the first shift, the melt. Let's begin with the first and most foundational shift. The melt. Most hugs end too soon. They are rushed, transactional, almost like a handshake. But when you allow yourself to melt, when you lean into the hug and stay just a few extra seconds, the entire dynamic changes. Your body communicates without words. I am safe. I am here. I am not in a hurry to leave. That message, though silent, lands in the deepest part of him. It is rare. It is healing. It is unforgettable. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." A rushed hug speaks the unconscious language of fear, of distance, of performance. A melted hug speaks the unconscious language of trust, of intimacy, of presence. When you melt, you are bringing awareness to something most people leave in autopilot. And in doing so, you create a moment that feels fated, though in truth, it was intentional. How to melt. 1. Soften your shoulders. Let them drop instead of tensing up. 2. Lean your weight slightly into him. Not in a needy way, but in a grounded way that says, I am here. 3. Allow your head to find a natural resting place. Maybe it's his chest, maybe his shoulder, wherever it feels most natural. 4. Stay for a beat longer than expected. Not an eternity. Just long enough to break the pattern of rush and release. The difference between a hug that feels polite and one that feels magnetic often comes down to just 3 seconds of stillness. 3 seconds where you allow your body to say what your words don't need to. And here is the secret. This isn't only for him. It's for you too. Because when you allow yourself to melt, you are giving yourself permission to be held. You are reminding yourself that you don't always have to carry everything alone. For a brief moment, you can surrender, breathe, and exist in closeness without performance. That is not weakness, it is strength. Jung's wisdom captures this truth perfectly. The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. To melt into a hug is, in a way, to accept yourself completely in that moment. To say, I don't need to perform. I don't need to impress. I simply need to be. And paradoxically, that is what makes you unforgettable. The emotional signature of a hug. Every hug leaves an emotional signature. For most, it's neutral. For some, it's awkward. But for the few who know how to be present, it becomes magnetic. Presence creates memory. Memory creates longing. Longing creates connection. So when you think about how to leave a man thinking of you long after you've gone, don't look only to the words you said or the way you looked. Look to how you made him feel in the quietest of moments. A hug, when owned with presence, becomes a timeless experience. It slows the world. It makes him breathe differently. It reminds him of something rare, that closeness does not always have to be rushed or earned. Sometimes it can simply be received. And that, without drama, without performance, is what keeps him coming back. The second shift. The breath. The unspoken signal of safety. Breath is primal. Breath is unconscious. Breath is truth. You can fake a smile, rehearse words, or even disguise your emotions with performance, but you cannot fake your breathing. It is the body's most honest language. That is why, when you learn to harness it in a hug, you create an impact so subtle yet so unforgettable that it lingers long after the moment is over. Carl Jung once remarked, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." And while he was speaking about the journey of inner growth, the same principle applies here. The unconscious patterns of tension, the instinct to hold our breath when we feel nervous, stressed, or guarded, those need to be brought to light. Until you become aware of them, your hugs will carry that unconscious message. I'm not safe. I'm holding back. I can't fully relax here. But the moment you choose to exhale, you rewrite the script. You take control of the message your body is sending. You shift the embrace from something polite into something magnetic, healing, and deeply human. The physiology of breath in intimacy. Here's what most people don't realize: breathing is directly linked to the nervous system. When you hold your breath, you activate subtle stress responses. Your body goes into guard mode. The person holding you may not consciously register this, but they will feel it. Your stillness becomes stiffness. Your presence becomes performance. On the other hand, when you exhale softly, your body signals, I'm safe. I trust this. I can relax. And because humans are wired to mirror one another's emotional states, he will unconsciously begin to relax too. Your soft sigh becomes his softening. Your safety becomes his safety. That is why this moment becomes unforgettable. Because for those few seconds, he is allowed to stop performing and simply exist in your presence. Jung once wrote, "The shoe that fits one person pinches another." There is no recipe for living that suits all cases. There is no one-size-fits-all formula for intimacy either. But breath is universal. It bypasses cultural scripts, expectations, and overthinking. It is the sound of life, the sound of surrender. What men rarely experience. Men, in particular, rarely get to feel this kind of vulnerability. In daily life, they are conditioned to hold it all together, to be strong, composed, in control. Their breath is often shallow, hurried, clipped by the demands of stress and responsibility. But in the arms of a woman who lets herself exhale softly, who surrenders to the moment without dramatics, something profound happens. He feels chosen. He feels like the source of your ease. He feels that simply by holding you, he allowed you to let go. That is an intoxicating experience, one that few men will ever forget. This is not about trying to seduce him with exaggerated sighs or theatrical sounds. In fact, that breaks the spell. The magic lies in the authenticity of it. A soft, natural, almost involuntary release. The kind that seems to say, I didn't even plan this. I just felt safe enough with you to let go. Jung captured this essence beautifully when he said, the most intense conflicts, if overcome, leave behind a sense of security and calm that is not easily disturbed. Your exhale, in a way, dissolves the unconscious conflict between tension and release. It communicates calm in the most primal way possible. How to use the breath in a hug. 1. Notice your natural impulse. Do you hold your breath when you hug? Do you tense your shoulders? Awareness is the first step. 2. Slow the inhale. Breathe in gently through your nose as you settle into the embrace. 3. Exhale into him. Let it be quiet, soft, natural. It doesn't need to be long or dramatic. Just enough to send the signal of ease. 4. Feel the shift. Notice how your own body relaxes, how your shoulders drop, how your mind quiets. And then notice how he responds. That exhale does more than create intimacy. It heals, it grounds. It reminds both of you that closeness doesn't need to be rushed or earned. It can simply be received. The silent echo. Here's what happens afterward. He may not consciously think, wow, she exhaled into me, that was powerful. In fact, he probably won't have words for it at all, but he will remember the feeling. Later that night, while lying in bed or driving in his car, something will replay in his body, a quiet echo. The softness of your breath, the way you seem to melt, the subtle sound of trust. And that memory creates craving. Not craving in a shallow, physical sense, but craving for the feeling of being the man who made you feel safe enough to let go. That is the kind of craving that keeps him coming back, that makes him think of you long after the hug has ended. Carl Jung explained, the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. Breath is the spark in that chemical reaction. Without it, the hug remains polite. With it, the hug becomes transformative. The breath as a gift to yourself. What's even more beautiful is that this isn't just for him. This is for you too. Because when you allow yourself to exhale fully in someone's arms, you remind yourself that you are allowed to be held. You are allowed to relax. You are allowed to exist without carrying the weight of the world for a few seconds. This shift is not about manipulation. It is not about crafting an image. It is about embodying truth. I can be safe. I can be here. I can let go. That truth empowers you just as much as it captivates him. Jung's insight brings this home. As far as we can discern, the sole purpose of human existence is to kindle a light in the darkness of mere being. Your breath is that light. In a noisy, busy, restless world, the softness of your exhale becomes a flame of presence. It cuts through distraction and ignites connection, putting it all together. The hug itself is often rushed. People pat, release, move on. But the woman who knows how to breathe into it, to exhale with intention, transforms the embrace into something timeless. It becomes a moment of grounding, a memory etched into his nervous system. So the next time he pulls you close, remember this. Don't hold your breath. Don't rush. Don't overthink. Feel the moment. Exhale softly. Trust the simplicity. Because sometimes the most unforgettable message you can send is not a word, not a touch, but a sigh that says, "I trust you with my stillness." And that message is one he will never forget. The third shift. The whisper, the secret language of intimacy. In a world that never stops talking, where conversations are often loud, rushed, and filled with noise, the whisper stands apart. It is quiet, intimate, and deeply personal. A whisper cuts through the chaos, forcing both people to lean in closer. And when it happens during a hug, in the stillness of closeness, it becomes one of the most powerful, unforgettable ways to imprint yourself on a man's memory. Carl Jung once said, "Knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darkness of other people." At first glance, this may not seem connected to whispering, but think about it. The courage to whisper something personal, something vulnerable, comes from knowing your own depth. You cannot fake genuine intimacy. You cannot whisper something authentic unless you are comfortable with silence, closeness, and the little truths of your own heart. Why the whisper works. Most hugs are silent. They end with a pat on the back, a smile, or a casual release. But when you whisper something during that moment, you break the script. You transform what could have been forgettable into something private, secret, and emotionally charged. The whisper works because it combines multiple sensory experiences. He feels the warmth of your body. He hears your voice close to his ear. He absorbs the intimacy of the words, however simple. That layering creates a multi-sensory imprint. He doesn't just remember what you said. He remembers how it felt to hear it while holding you. And here's the magic. It doesn't need to be profound or poetic. Often, the simplest phrases are the most powerful. Something like, "You give good hugs. I really needed this today. Hey you," with a soft smile behind it. What matters is not the content. It's the delivery. The softness of your tone, the breath behind it, the nearness of your lips to his ear. Those small details transform a casual hug into an unforgettable emotional moment. Carl Jung captured this beautifully when he wrote, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. The whisper is the spark that ignites this reaction. It elevates a moment of physical closeness into emotional resonance." Whispering as an invitation. A whisper is not about demanding attention. It's about offering a private piece of yourself. That's what makes it so magnetic. In a culture where people shout to be heard, whispering is subversive. It's a gentle rebellion against the noise, an invitation into intimacy. Men are especially drawn to this because they so rarely experience it. Many of their interactions are built on performance, being strong, being funny, being impressive. Rarely are they invited into quiet, secret, vulnerable space. When you whisper to him during a hug, you create that space. You say without saying, "This moment matters. I'm letting you in." Carl Jung once remarked, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." A whisper during a hug is not about performance. It is about truth. It's not about seduction in the theatrical sense. It's about authenticity. And authenticity is what stays in memory. How to whisper in a hug. 1. Wait until you're close. Don't rush to speak. Let the silence build a little tension. 2. Lean in slightly. Position your lips close to his ear, but not in an exaggerated way. Natural, effortless. 3. Keep your tone low and slow. The softness is what creates intimacy. 4. Say something simple, true, and light. It doesn't need to be a grand confession. A small truth is enough. 5. Pull back slightly with a smile. This anchors the moment, leaving him wondering about it long after. The lingering effect. Here's what will happen after. He won't just remember the words. He'll remember your voice in his head, the way it felt to have you so close, the intimacy of that moment. And he'll replay it, not in a conscious, obsessive way, but in the quiet moments, like a melody stuck in his mind. Carl Jung observed, "Loneliness does not come from having no people around you, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to you." A whisper during a hug breaks that loneliness. It communicates something important, Not through volume, but through intimacy. And because it's rare, it feels electric. Why the whisper is so rare? Think about it. How often do people whisper to each other outside of lovers or children? Not very often. That's why it feels so intimate. When you whisper something genuine during a hug, it signals trust. It says, this is just between us. This moment is ours. Men rarely get this kind of connection. Most of their relationships, whether with friends, colleagues, or even dates, exist on the surface. But the woman who whispers something genuine in his arms, she breaks through the surface. She gives him a peek behind the curtain. She creates emotional intimacy without pressure. Carl Jung explained, your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes. Whispering is a way of looking inward and sharing that inner world. However briefly, it awakens him, not just to you, but to the feeling of intimacy itself. Whispering is feminine power. This shift is not about control. It's not about manipulation. It's about leaning into one of the most timeless powers of feminine energy, subtlety. Instead of trying to dominate the moment, you allow softness to carry it. Instead of making a grand display, you create quiet intimacy. That contrast is magnetic. The whisper works because it feels natural, unplanned, and personal. It is not for the world. It is for him, and that makes it unforgettable. Putting it all together. The next time you're in his arms, don't let the moment pass like every other hug. Don't just pat his back and release. Stay. Breathe. Let the silence stretch. And then, lean in and whisper something meant only for him. It doesn't have to be poetic. It doesn't have to be rehearsed. It simply has to be real. Because when you whisper in that moment, you're not just speaking, you're creating a memory. You're planting a seed in his mind that will grow long after you've left. And he won't just remember what you said. He'll remember how you made him feel. Chosen, trusted, and close. That is the secret language of intimacy. That is the power of the whisper. The fourth shift. The hands, speaking without words. When most people think of a hug, they think of arms wrapped around each other. But within that embrace, there is a detail that often goes unnoticed, yet has the power to transform the entire experience. The hands. Hands communicate in ways words never could. They can be rushed or tender, stiff or soothing, absent or intentional. And because they're often overlooked, most people default to passivity. Their hands just hang there, lifeless, waiting for the hug to end. But when you use your hands with purpose, with presence, the hug shifts from ordinary to unforgettable. Carl Jung once said, the hands will solve a mystery that the intellect has struggled with in vain. He was speaking of the unconscious, of art, of creativity. But the truth applies here too. What you cannot communicate with clever words, you can communicate with your hands. Why the hands matter. Consider the difference. A hug where arms hang limp feels one-sided, almost detached. A hug where the hands grip too tightly can feel needy or anxious. But a hug where the hands move with calm intention, resting, lingering, gently tracing, feels grounding, intimate and magnetic. The hands are like punctuation in the language of touch. They signal whether you're merely tolerating closeness or actively participating in it. They say without words, I feel you. I want to be here. I'm holding you back. This is why men remember it, because most hugs in their lives are forgettable. Quick, neutral, polite, but the one where a woman uses her hands with presence, that one lingers. The subtle power of intentional touch. Intentional doesn't mean dramatic. It doesn't mean elaborate gestures or calculated moves. In fact, the power lies in subtlety. Imagine your fingertips lightly brushing up and down his back, your palm resting gently at the base of his neck, a soft squeeze at the middle of the hug, as if to say, this matters. A lingering touch on his chest for a second after the hug is ended. These micro gestures create lasting imprints. They bypass the surface and land directly in his nervous system. They are remembered not because they're flashy, but because they're rare. Carl Jung observed, in all chaos there is a cosmos. In all disorder a secret order. The same applies to touch. In a world where physical contact often feels rushed, casual, or transactional, Intentional hands create order. They slow time. They build meaning into a moment most people overlook. What men secretly crave. Here's a truth that few talk about. Men are starved for meaningful touch. Outside of romantic encounters, many men receive very little physical affection in their daily lives. They don't get lingering, nurturing, intentional touch. Not from friends, not from colleagues, not even sometimes from family. So when a woman offers it, not in an overly sexual way, but in a way that is grounding, feminine, and safe, it pierces through his defenses. It makes him feel both desired and cared for. That combination is intoxicating. Carl Jung once wrote, "Where wisdom reigns, there is no conflict between thinking and feeling." Intentional hands create exactly that balance. They are thoughtful yet natural, tender yet confident. They merge presence with feeling. How to use your hands in a hug. 1. Be present. Don't let your hands dangle absent-mindedly. Decide to be part of the moment. 2. Choose subtlety. A small gesture, a gentle trace, a soft squeeze often speaks louder than something dramatic. 3. Rest, don't grip. A resting palm feels calming. A gripping hand can feel anxious. 4. Linger. Let your hands stay for just a beat longer, even as the hug ends. That pause creates memory. 5. Follow your intuition. Don't script it. Let your body respond to the closeness naturally. The hands as emotional anchors. The beauty of using your hands with intention is that they anchor the hug emotionally. They prevent it from floating away into forgettability. Think of it like a signature you're leaving behind. A unique imprint that belongs only to you. Carl Jung once said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." Your hands are the catalyst of that reaction. They turn the hug from polite contact into transformative connection. The memory you leave, here's what will happen. Later that day, he might not be able to recall exactly what you were wearing, or even the precise words you said, but he will remember the way your hand rested against him. He will remember the softness of your touch, the way it felt like you were present instead of absent. That memory becomes his craving. Because while attraction may begin with the eyes, obsession is born in the nervous system. And when your hands create safety, warmth, and presence, he won't be able to stop thinking about it. Carl Jung put it this way: the most intense conflicts, if overcome, leave behind a sense of security and calm that is not easily disturbed. When your hands carry calmness into a hug, you give him that security. You become a rare space where he can let his guard down. And he will come back to that space, again and again. Why subtlety wins? It's worth repeating. This is not about trying to seduce him with elaborate gestures. It's not about making the hug overtly sexual. The true power lies in restraint, in letting the smallest touches carry meaning. The human mind remembers subtlety because it begs to be revisited. A dramatic move may shock or excite, but a subtle touch lingers, asking his memory to replay it again and again. That's why it becomes obsession, not with your body, but with your energy. Putting it all together. The next time you hug him, don't let your hands hang lifelessly at your sides. Don't treat them as passive participants. Instead, let them speak for you. Let them tell him, "I feel you. I'm present. I want to be here." That simple shift transforms everything. It turns a hug from something polite into something unforgettable. It anchors you in his memory, not because you tried to impress him, but because you let yourself be felt. And that is what creates magnetism, the kind that doesn't fade, the kind that keeps him thinking of you long after you've walked away. The fifth shift? The release, the art of letting him go first. Every hug has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Most people don't think much about that last part. They pull away when it feels socially acceptable, or when the silence feels awkward, or when they assume the other person has had enough. But if you want to create a moment that lingers in a man's memory, one that leaves him replaying the embrace long after it's over, there is a subtle yet profoundly powerful shift. Let him be the one to let go first. Carl Jung once said, "The pendulum of the mind oscillates between sense and nonsense, not between right and wrong." In the dance of intimacy, there is no universal right or wrong moment to release, but there is meaning in the choice. By choosing not to rush out, by allowing him to decide when the moment ends, you send a message that resonates beyond words. I am comfortable with closeness. I am not in a hurry to escape. I trust the moment and I trust you. Why this works? Most people rush through hugs because they're uncomfortable with stillness. They worry about overstaying, about awkwardness, about vulnerability. So they cut it short. But that's also why their hugs are forgettable. The woman who stays, who resists the impulse to exit first, creates a rare kind of emotional gravity. She becomes the exception in a world of rushed gestures, and men notice this. Even if he doesn't consciously analyze it, his nervous system registers it. She didn't pull away. She wasn't trying to leave. She was just there with me. That subtle decision changes the dynamic. It places him in the role of choosing when to let go. And when he feels that choice, it deepens his sense of connection. The signal you send. By not letting go first, you are not being passive or needy. You are being present. You are saying, I don't fear this closeness. I am not calculating the clock. I'm here until you're ready. That kind of presence is magnetic. Carl Jung observed, the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. The release is the final spark of that reaction. By staying, you allow the full alchemy to occur. You don't interrupt the transformation. You let it complete itself. What men rarely experience. For men, hugs are often transactional. Quick greetings, casual goodbyes, functional contact. Rarely do they experience a woman lingering in their arms without rushing, without overthinking, without trying to prove or perform. When they do, it feels different. It feels grounding. It feels like a mirror of the softness they rarely access in themselves. And because it's so rare, they don't forget it. Carl Jung once said, man needs difficulties. They are necessary for health. In intimacy, the difficulty is often vulnerability, staying in the discomfort of closeness. Most people avoid it. But when you lean into it, when you allow yourself to stay, you create health in the connection. You bring balance where the world often brings rush. How to practice the release. 1. Resist the urge to pull away early. Notice the impulse but don't obey it. 2. Relax into the silence. The quiet is not awkward, it is intimacy. 3. Trust him to decide. Allow him to make the move when he's ready. 4. Stay soft, not stiff. Your presence is not passive, it's grounded. 5. Notice the afterglow. Watch how he looks at you differently once he lets go. The emotional ripple. When you let him release first, something subtle but powerful happens inside him. He feels trusted. He feels that you weren't waiting to escape. He feels that you were safe in his arms. That sense of safety is rare, and it is addictive. Later he will replay it, not in obvious terms but in quiet reflection. He'll wonder why it felt so good, why it stuck with him. He may not have words for it, but he'll feel the craving to experience it again. Carl Jung noted, your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes. The release is an invitation for him to look inward. To ask himself, why did that feel different? Why did I feel more seen, more held, more trusted? In that questioning, intimacy deepens. Why it's not neediness. It's important to emphasize, staying until he lets go is not about clinging. It is not about holding on too tight. In fact, clinging breaks the spell. The power lies in the balance, soft, confident, unhurried. You're not trying to control the moment, you're surrendering to it. That surrender radiates strength. It shows that you are comfortable with intimacy, not desperate for it. It shows that you can hold space for closeness without trying to dictate or rush. And that balance is rare. Carl Jung captured this paradox well. Wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of one's being, but by integration of the contraries. The release embodies this integration. It is both closeness and letting go. It is both surrender and strength. It is both presence and freedom. Putting it all together. Now let's zoom out. Across this series, you've discovered 5 subtle but powerful shifts. 1. The melt, softening into the hug instead of rushing out. 2. The breath, exhaling into him as a primal signal of safety. 3. The whisper, sharing something private, intimate, and memorable. 4. The hands, using intentional touch to anchor the moment. 5. The release, allowing him to let go first, signaling trust and presence. Individually, each of these shifts is powerful. Together, they form a symphony of presence. They turn the hug, a gesture most people treat as ordinary, into an unforgettable experience. Carl Jung once wrote, "As far as we can discern, the sole purpose of human existence is to kindle a light in the darkness of mere being." These shifts are your way of kindling that light. In a world rushing by, you become the rare flame of stillness, softness, and presence. The final challenge. The next time you're in his arms, don't think of the hug as a bridge to something else. Let it be the moment. Stay, melt, breathe, whisper, touch with intention. And then, when the time comes, let him be the one to release. Watch how his body responds. Watch how his eyes change when he pulls back. Watch how he looks at you, not as someone passing through, but as someone unforgettable. He may not say it out loud. He may not even consciously understand it, but he will feel it, and he will come back for it, again and again. Because in a world full of noise, speed, and performance, you gave him something timeless, the experience of being truly felt. And that quiet, magnetic presence is what lingers forever. If you found these insights powerful, and you want to unlock even more ways to create unforgettable connections, make sure to subscribe now. When you subscribe, you won't just get more tips, you'll get the subtle tools that make men think about you long after you've left the room. Don't let this be the last secret you discover. Tap subscribe and step into your most magnetic, irresistible self.